Hello to everyone just joining us. The meeting has just started. If you could please keep yourselves on mute until it's time for questions, that would be excellent. Thank you so much. I am Rose, the Communications Coordinator. Thank you for being here with us tonight.
Sure that, because we haven't gathered yet, as a government and as a citizen, we grieve with you in that process. And anything that we can do as a government, I want to, extend that opportunity for citizens to come forward. And if there's something that we can actually help to move through that process and grieving process. And I know that we will have a gathering of a little later in the year, a celebration, a bit of a celebration. Hopefully, things evolve, opening up more normal compared to like how it is. And, I don't know how the fall will look. We have children that, are potentially vulnerable to, the new strains of the virus. And, just moving forward, I think just a cautionary approach to where we are going as a community. And once again, I'd just really like to extend my condolences on probably behalf of the executive and the legislature on, the things that have passed over the last year and a half, and our ability to actually have conversations at a table and just be more proactive. That's all I'm looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other members of the executive want to make any welcoming comments? Geneva?
Shu. Ukla mahtik. As mentioned earlier, it's really good to see you guys back in the gym, and I'm really hopeful moving forward that we'll be able to have more gatherings and be able to spend more time together culturally and just sharing that good energy and sharing our grief. And yeah, it's really good to see you all. Shu.
Thank you. I also just want to take a moment to thank our cooks for the amazing meal. Cleko, cleko. Cixŵatin, delicious. Thank you very much for that. And also just want to thank you for the opening prayer, Geneva, for blessing our meal. We're now going to review and adopt the agenda. Just so folks know, we're trying something new. And whenever you try something new, it might not work quite great at first. So for this assembly, we have our citizens here in the room. You'll see on the screen to my right, we have Zoom. So we have folks who are participating on Zoom, which is a online meeting platform for these kinds of meetings. And then we're also live streaming. And we're also live streaming this session. So we've got a few technological balls in the air here that we're trying to accommodate all of the citizens. We're going to see how that goes. But just so everyone's aware, our live stream observers as well as our Zoom participants, the process, we're going to, when it comes to the question and answer period on our agenda, we're going to take questions from the floor first, and then we'll go to the folks that are on Zoom if there are any questions. So that's the process that we're going to use for this session. So we're now on item number 3 of our agenda, to review and adopt the agenda. Is there any additions that anyone would like to add to the agenda? And I'm sorry, because we are on online and such, I need you to walk up to the mic. And if you can say your name and the item that you would like to add, please.
Hello, Uklama Nanim Sakwachish. I would like to add security and outreach.
Thank you.
True.
Yes.
I would like to have someone report from the executive or whoever about the incident of somebody getting 50 fish, telling some kind of a story about it was for a marriage or something. So I want to know what's going to happen with it.
Thank you.
And I think I'm going to keep my questions to a minimum. Because I told Chuck, I said, I got for every year that every month that we've been off, I got 16 questions. I don't want to bore you guys.
Thanks.
Well, my name is Leo Tucci, and I'd just like to talk about patient travel.
Patient travel. Thank you.
Uklama Cixŵatin. My English name is Anita Charleston Tucci. I'd just like to see acknowledgements and uplifting members and community.
Gordon Taylor, Mount Ozark, and eekoo First Nation territory.
Mount Ozark?
Yes.
Hello, Sheldon Tucci. In regards to my little Yuki Green referendum, thanks.
Yuki referendum. Has anything come in online? Melissa? Anything online? Okay. All right, so we have security and outreach, the 50 fish incident, patient travel, acknowledgement and uplifting our members, Mount Ozark and the eekoo territory, and a Yuki referendum. Yes.
I'd also, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'd also like to add trauma and addictions on there. Thank you.
So if it's okay, are we? Do we have a health report update? A health update? Do we have a? It is, okay. So just for the efficiencies, I'm going to request that we put patient travel and trauma and addictions when our executive report on health is presented. So we're going to add those two items to make sure that we address them in health. For the fish incident, we will address that in, I believe that's lands and resources. So we'll put that incident in with lands and resources. Health. Okay. That's all I can think of. I'll do it. Or somebody, is the staff here? Okay. Yes, sir.
I think it was in the lands. I think it was during lands they're doing, during their executive reports. I was wondering if we're gonna add on building a ball field.
Ball field, okay.
Yeah.
Lands. Are there any other items that the citizens would like to ensure are addressed in this evening's session? I forget I asked for a motion to adopt, right? So I need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Tyson? Seconded? Vi? Any discussion on the motion? Is there any discussion? Discussion, question's been called. All those in favor of adoption of the agenda, please raise your hand. And on Zoom, I guess folks will tell us they're okay. Yeah, all right. So that is our agenda. We're now going to move to executive reports. If there are any executive members who aren't here present to present their report, I've asked the Director of Operations to present their report on their behalf. So who is, we're going to go by meeting kit. So if you're lucky and get your report in here first, you're up. So Jenny.
Good evening, everybody. So in your meeting kit, I did provide a written executive report for my portfolio. So I will just touch on what's been included in your kit. So the first topic talks about, other than the executive meetings, topic B is general updates on the asset department. So for this period, I've met every 2 weeks to discuss updates on all projects with the asset manager and the economic development officer. The asset manager and EDO were also participating in proposed amendments to the Zoning and Structures Act and the Official Community Plan Act. We're also looking at proposed draft legislation for business licensing. So this would allow us to license operators that operate within treaty settlement lands, gives a little bit more control for third-party operators. In terms of the GAPS action plan, the housing inspections completed to date include 46 government-owned homes and 29 privately owned homes. Repair packages are being grouped and assembled and will be going out for proposals from contractors. The asset manager is also working with the lands department on subdivision planning for expanding housing stock in Hitatsu. The mini big house project is underway. So if you're not aware, this is a project that was funded by the First Peoples Cultural Council, and it's a new construction in addition to Cix၀that will allow us to expand our cultural library and bring additional artifacts home from museums. The next topic is economic development. So for this period, since our last assembly, we've had meetings with the ECDEV committee on April 8th, May 21st, and June 29th. So that makes 8 meetings for this fiscal year. The ECDEV committee has decided that we're going to try and meet monthly rather than the minimum 6 meetings required for each period, just to allow us to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the proposed ideas that are floating around out there. We've also got a new ECDEV committee member, Levana Mastrangelo. She was welcomed to the ECDEV committee at our last meeting on the 29th of June. For this period, we've also had the Indigenous Community Business Fund complete. So this seen $10,500 distributed to micro businesses owned by citizens. So this was a program available through ISC, so Indigenous Services Canada, and we received a lump sum funding for assisting small businesses within our treaty settlement lands and with citizens. So $10,500 went to citizens, which is great. We're also continuing to work on establishing consistent reporting between the businesses and the government. So in the package behind my executive report here is a first quarter report from the YG group of businesses. So I'm hoping to see more regular, consistent reporting from the government-owned businesses back to citizens. So please feel free to look at those. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to funnel them through me as well. And then lastly, we're looking at an ECDEV open house for citizen engagement in early fall. So this was a project that we had originally scheduled for last year, but unfortunately because of COVID, we had to put that plan aside because we couldn't meet in person. And the ECDEV committee just felt that it was really going to be beneficial for us to be able to have the face-to-face with citizens rather than us trying to do this through email or just online. So we're hoping to have that in early fall and hoping to see a big turnout for that one because I think it's going to be really informative. I've also been continuing to serve as the alternate director for YG on the Manaus Treaty Society Board of Directors. That included me participating in the Treaty Society technical working groups regarding the Trans Mountain Expansion Project. Those meetings took place on May 5th, 28th, and 31st. More recently, our Lands and Resources Manager and our Economic Development Officer have been appointed to serve as our representatives based on technical expertise that they bring. So they'll be taking over on that topic of my file. And then speaking further to the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, I did participate in meetings with Finance Canada regarding the project on May 20th, 27th, June 9th, and June 16th. As part of this, this file, there's also an Indigenous forum. So this Indigenous forum is really meant to allow all 129 nations that are impacted by the project to have an open dialogue without representatives of Canada participating. So I did participate in those forum meetings on April 14th, May 13th, June 9th, and July 7th. And then looking at the miscellaneous items, participated in the meeting with Minister Carolyn Bennett regarding the housing stimulus spending package proposal on March 5th and May 4th. Also participate in the housing working group meetings. We've had 3 most recent ones, March 12th, March 30th, and April 27th. Participated in the Cultural Library Expansion meeting on March 22nd. This was really a way for us to visualize what this project is going to look like on the ground. So it was exciting to see those plans start to develop. Also had participated in meetings with the Independent Investigations Office, the NTC and family members regarding late James Williams and the IIO report into his death. Those meetings took place on April 23rd, June 10th, and June 28th. Sat in personnel meetings by invite on April 23rd, and I also participated in the Links to Learning, which was a economic development and lands management symposium put on by ISC and a bunch of other departments. And that was in May 3rd and 4th. And then just looking at the upcoming activities, again, the ongoing bilateral meetings with the asset manager and economic development officer, ongoing ECDEV committee meetings, economic development open house, like I indicated earlier, and the ongoing housing working group meetings, dates all to be determined. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Clayco, are there any questions based on the report that you've just heard? Okay, we'll move on to our next report. Oh. Yes.
Yeah, just wanted to ask Jenny about that Indigenous Community Business Fund. Is this an annual thing? Can we apply any time? Is there deadlines?
So this was, as far as we're aware right now, it was a one-time program. We're hoping that it will return again as the government continues to try and stimulate the economy. So if there are any further programs available, it'll definitely be passed on to community members so that they're aware of it being available.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Clayco, thank you very much for your question. We'll now move on to our next report, Lori Tucci, Community Services. And I understand Lori's not here, right? Okay, Lori's not here, so I'm going to invite our Director of Operations, Suzanne, to offer this report.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to share this report with you today. I'm going to go through the highlights. There are printed copies in your packages and also copies available at ufn.ca. So feel free to read through the detailed report at your leisure. But in short, I will be covering healthcare department updates and updates from community services, social services, and education. So starting with the healthcare department, Dr. Carrie Marshall's clinic has been going quite well since its start in April 2021. It's been running at full capacity with maybe 2 or 3 people on the wait list on a weekly basis. It is run quite efficiently, just seeing the team in action down there. So many thanks to the community services department for making that happen. In the last few months, we've been working with others to add 2 new systems here at YG, including an electronic medical record system and others which are called Panorama and the TELUS Wolf system. So between those, those sources of technology, we'll be able to, our team will be able to do their job a little more effectively. Judy Gleason, as you know, was brought on as our registered nurse, so she jumped right in and is working with the rest of the health team on various health initiatives. The COVID vaccination process was a success, with 84.6% of the community members being vaccinated with no side effects, and the second round coming in May, with another 86% of the community being vaccinated. Just this month, we started rolling out a healthy meals program for elders and some others in the community. I think it's going quite well, with some really good feedback from some of the participants. There are a few clinics up and running, including nephrology, optometry, and podiatry. And then we'll be working with the First Nation Health Authority in the coming months on First Nations personal care initiative. So we'll have more to announce at your next assembly on that one, perhaps. Upcoming are a number of things, including the Ushtiku traditional health program. We expect to roll that out with more traditional supports in 2022. An addiction relief opiate addictions treatment clinic, my apologies. That one's in preliminary discussions, so nothing really to report on that. And then also coming in the fall are physiotherapist services. So we're looking at hosting a physiotherapist in the community 5 days a week, starting in September to early October. And then for the start of next year, maybe some dental services. For the community services program, you may have noticed that there is an internship program to which many of the youth are involved in. they've been working on various projects, mentoring with some of the staff members, and also doing some good things for the community. So some of them are here tonight, I believe, and they actually helped set up the gym this morning. So I'd like to acknowledge them for all their hard work and everything that they're contributing to the community. The Warrior Women Program is here, thanks to Rohan and his team. So Jenna Miller is now back on staff and will be overseeing that program. The Parks Canada Junior Guardian Program. This is the group that was working on the trail for Hitatsu Lake and some other programming. So their program is going to be continued on into this new fiscal year. One of the things that they'll be working on is a community beautification initiative. So you might see them out in the field in the coming weeks. Some upcoming training for the community include first aid, driving, PAL training, food safe, and then we'll be working on the construction of a shed and a greenhouse, maybe a sidewalk for Hitatsu. For social services, parenting classes were set up, and we started a project with a few sets of parents who have successfully completed the training. Summer registration filled up pretty quickly, so it's nice to see the kids back in youth programming every day, thanks to Gloria, Adam, Jenna, and the Child Care Center. We also have some special parenting support set up with Gloria, customized based on individual needs. And ongoing hiring is taking place at the Child Care Center to accommodate the return of the children. For education, Adam Gleason, now our manager of education, is supporting a number of post-secondary students. And according to their records and statistics, attendance has increased by 180% annually, with more emphasis on higher and trade-based education platforms. And then there's some other education initiatives. The STEM program, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, is underway. And you'll see some pictures in your kit of some of the projects that those children and youth are working on. So lots of good things going on for the children and everyone in the community. Choo.
Thank you for offering that report on behalf of our executive member. We did have a few items from the floor that are related to health that include patient travel and addictions. So if those individuals want to come to the mic, now is the time to talk about that issue.
Yeah, hello. I just wanted to bring up patient travel. For quite some time now, the price on you guys helping us get to our destinations like Port or Nanaimo or anywhere else. The price has been the same for quite some time now. And I don't know how many times I had appointments in Port Alberni, and the check has been $42 or something just to get there and back. And that's not enough to get there and back. Like I had to pull out my own money just to help with the gas and that, because sometimes it's hard to find a ride. Once I tried, what's that bus? You know that bus? The Wheels for Wellness. I tried them. I phoned them up. I said, yeah, we can get you. They wanted to pick up somebody from Tofino. So that person I had to get to Nanaimo by 8:30 in the morning. And I had an appointment in Parksville, and they wanted to pick me up at 5 a.m. And I didn't want to wait around in Parksville for 6 or 7 hours. So I was just wondering if they're going to up the price or anything like that.
Thank you. So the question is, the cost to travel to meet appointments is greater than what citizens are receiving to assist them with travel. So does any of our executive members, Chuck? Thank you.
Just on that, I mean, Youth Outlet, we don't set the rate. That is actually, I mean, a rate that's sent from, I can't remember which, I have to look at. It's a set rate for all First Nations, and it's not meant to pay the full travel there. It's to assist you in getting to your place, so it doesn't pay your full travel. But it is, I mean, a standard rate that is actually across the board for all First Nations, depending on the distance and that they have to travel.
Just to respond to that, I think it's important for our leadership to advocate for the needs of our community members, especially those who, you know, might not even have grocery money or gas money, you know. So I can hear you, Leo, and I think if there's a way that we can advocate for more, that's really important. I see it over and over that the people that are living in poverty are always left last, and it's not okay. So if we can advocate for our community members, especially those that are less fortunate, I hope that's heard. And I'm just confused too, because in my mind, self-governing means that we are in control of our own, you know? So I get tired of hearing that said, you know, they're telling us this is the rate. You know, that's confusing to me. So maybe we're not so self-governing, I don't know. But yeah, I wanted to comment on that piece because I know Leo is probably speaking for a number of community members. And is this where I would ask questions related to the report?
I was told my mic would never be off, and I had to keep waiting for it to go on. Yes, this is a time to ask questions in regards to this report, as well as to raise the trauma and addictions that you raised earlier. I'm just going to pause for just one moment and turn to one of our elders to ask a question, and then I'll come back to you if that's okay. Sure. Larry?
There's no way to be nice about the problem because the rate has been the same for a long time, right? And I understand from many years ago that when we signed on to be a treaty nation, we govern ourselves. Nobody governs us. If we want to make changes, we can make changes. Right or wrong, sir?
Please direct the chair. Sorry. I appreciate the question.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's DIA again. It's DIA again, right? I made 2 trips to Port Alberni, one for blood and one to see my doctor. I never put a claim in because it's too much of a hassle, right? And anybody seen the local gas rates? 166 in Port Alberni, right? And it's going to go up again. Supposedly it's going to go much higher by the end of this summer. So, and people are just shying away from carting people here and carting people there. I mean, I don't know how many vehicles we got sitting out there. Why can't we train somebody, 1 or 2 young people, properly with the help of this fella here how to drive properly and safely with people. And use the vans that we got that sit there, or are carting tools around the village. Is that what the vans were bought for? And trucks? We got trucks and vans carting tools around. So I think we got to start looking at being very efficient, right? Instead of just sitting back twiddling our thumbs. You know, I wasn't going to get into this, but the citizens have to have a say. Yeah, we elect people, but we elect people to do the work for us. We put our trust into the people that we elect, that they're going to look after us. If I could give them my $40 or $44 or whatever, the $84 or $86, I'd give it to them. But I can't because too much of a hassle. You know, we got to come up with a better system where it's a brochure or something that you can get, sign a paper that you are, or phone my doctor, I don't care. There has to be a better system, because once you put your claim in, you got to wait for somebody to sign it, and not everybody's available at any one time to sign it. You have sometimes got to wait for 2, 3, 4 days before somebody comes to sign it. You know, we should be a lot more efficient than we are. You know, COVID is not an excuse. And as of today, things should start improving. People that are supposed to work here, they should be in this building working and trying to make things more efficient. The more efficient we are, the more money we'll save. So I'm going to leave it at that for right now. I'll have other questions.
Thank you, Larry. So just on this issue, what I'm hearing from the floor is that patient travel and advocacy for citizens is very important. What I'd like to recommend is that we refer this matter to the portfolio holder to investigate further on other options to assist, if there's anything available to assist, to bring it to the executive and to bring back their findings to you at the next assembly. That's the best we can offer tonight. For a solution. Leo, I hope that's okay. That's what I'm going to recommend, how we proceed on that patient travel issue. And we'll bring it back. I'm just going to ask Jill to remind us. We're bringing that back to the next assembly. Thank you. Trauma and addictions? Oh, questions. Sorry. Okay, question.
Just curious about the electronic medical record system. I'm wondering, like, how confidential those systems are. Like, you know, so if my information is put into this system, who has access to that? And what is included in all of that data?
Who is?
The Director of Health and Social.
Okay, our Director of Health is on the Zoom. I've been informed. What's his name? Rohan?
Hi.
Like Lord of the Rings? Rohan, if you could please respond to the question in relation to who has access to electronic medical records.
Perfect. Thank you for the question, first of all. I hope you can hear me. So the electronic medical recording system is designed for end-to-end confidentiality. So if you visit your physician, and you will be asked for your consent if you want to enter in that EMR, and if you enter in that EMR, only the physician will be able to see it, because it runs on a separate firewall structure through VHA. We don't have access to it. Should you suppose tomorrow you move to a different place in BC, you need only go to your physician over there and just give your number, and they will be able to locate your files from here if they are on the EMR. That's why this medical setup has been created. I can assure you, anyone, just anyone from the street don't get access to this kind of a system. including myself. I don't have access to patient charting or patient details whatsoever. I only get statistics. So does many of my staff. The physician themselves, the RN, they will have access to your details only after you give consent to put things in the EMR.
Okay, thank you.
So what I heard is that only with your consent will a medical professional have access to your records.
Okay, thank you. And then another question related to health is there going to be youth vaccination clinics in our community?
Excellent question.
I can take that again if that's okay.
Yes.
So yeah, we are currently discussing dates, and we are looking at vaccine rigor. What it means is whether the vaccine is efficient enough for kids. We currently have only Pfizer that is given a permission by the government of Canada. But the volumes of Pfizer is quite low at this time. The government of Canada is looking at making other vaccines approved for the process of providing to the youth, and or looking into the different volumes that will be available for different vaccination groups. Once those are determined, we will fix a date when the vaccination clinics will happen again, but this time it will be open to the youth of the community. We will give the age group at that time. We will provide information on the website. We will give you a age group that we are trying to target, and all the other information will be provided to UFN community members at that time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question?
Yeah, thank you, Rohan. And it's so weird. His voice is just coming from the air. But yeah, say hi if you can see me. The next question I have is about the meals program. Does this include children?
I can take that again. Sorry for the wandering voice. But no, this is a pilot program that is done in collaboration with Island Health and UFN. Through this program, since it is a pilot, we are only targeting a select number of geriatric patients, and we are looking at providing indigenous food-related support to see lifestyle changes over a long-term period in a geriatric population with chronic diseases. What it means is we are looking at aged people in the community who have systemic or chronic issues, and we are looking to provide them with indigenous meal so that they can so that there is a change in their reports, and that will be measured over a 90-day period. VIHA will be given all the data that there is, and then if the pilot is successful, we will continue this program into the future. That's why it is not targeted towards kids or with any other person. It is only targeted at the geriatric population in the community.
Okay, thank you. And I just also want to just acknowledge how much I appreciate the contribution that YFN makes to the meal program in the schools. Yeah, I know that my kids turn to that even though they don't need it. Yeah. Yeah, I think that, the next question is related to the point 13. Yeah. Is there advocacy for addiction relief within Hitatsu? I see that it says eekoo it. It's taken us so long to get Dr. Marshall to come over here. I think the sooner we advocate for this within our own community, the better. So I guess that's all I want to say on that point. No, 10 more points, just kidding.
Would that, does that question cover the trauma and addictions question that you had?
No,
No,
no.
okay.
So with the trauma and addictions, it's on my mind because that's my area of expertise. You know, I've been trained in it and just finished supporting an intergenerational trauma healing session at Cots Common. And, you know, one of my greatest concerns for the past year and a half has been the impact that COVID has been having on our community members. You know, the isolation, the disconnection from our community, our culture. Yeah, it's just had such a negative impact. And from what I know about trauma is that when trauma isn't given the chance to be worked through, then it can linger and get passed on to the next generation. And so I guess I'd like to know if anything, or I guess encourage, you know, programs to be put in place that will support the coming together. And I know that even, you know, for some of my kids, there's anxiety about coming together. You know, I better not say, don't want to give out too much information about my kids, but, and, you know, looking at the community services report, one of the red flags for me is that there's very little about our children in there. A lot of the focus is on education when it comes to the kids. Yes, education is so important, and I know that, you know, I've graduated at the master's level, but emotional wellness, spiritual wellness is just as important. And I'm advocating for our children here. You know, they used to have a youth center down the road. And they don't have that space anymore. So I think we need programs for our children that include culture, and even our community services program could use more cultural healing. Another thing that I'm advocating for is supporting our community with grief and loss. We've lost so many members over the past year and a half. And part of the challenge is that we haven't been able to attend funerals because of the restrictions. And that does its, you know, it's like, you know, coming to comprehend that so-and-so is no longer here. And, you know, you kind of have to grasp that reality because there was no funeral. So, yeah, there's that point. And then I'm also curious about, you know, I haven't been involved for some time, and I wasn't aware that Eekoo First Nation transferred child protection services over to MCFD. And when I heard that, I was just like, oh, you know, because when that happens, there's a disconnection from who we are as Cixŵatin. And that really concerns me. So I'm wondering, you know, since any Eekoo First Nations families who are involved with the Ministry of Children and Families who are removed from their families, what is Cixŵatin doing, you know, to support the families? And one of my biggest concerns is that further disconnection from culture. from their identity.
Okay, I'm gonna pause us there because that's quite a bit for us to work through. So just to reiterate, what I'm hearing is a desire for intergenerational trauma support with the addictions work focusing in community, not just broader like here at home, asking about emotional wellness for the youth, and grief and loss support and concerns around child protection now being in the hands of MCFD. So Rohan, I don't know how much of that you want to tackle, but if there's anything on of those questions that you want to touch on, could you do that now?
Yes, absolutely. In essence of brevity, I'll start with the latest and I'll go to the farthest comment. So we haven't moved to MCFD. We are discussing a possible move, but we haven't done so as yet. And right now it is our child care is done with NTC at this time. So we are looking at all possible options. So your comments and your point of advocacy is absolutely right, and we are looking into those points as we speak. More to that effect will be brought out to you all, including a later time when this kind of a community session will happen exclusively for that question, and we will be tackling that question at that time separately with all of you. Going back to the point of addiction relief, there are about a couple of points that I have made in the report. One of them is that we are looking at creating an addiction relief center altogether, which will not only look at what A&D does, it will look at withdrawal all the way to rehab and social support. It's a complete journey that a patient will go through. So we are looking into that kind of a program over here. Unfortunately, though, we are still working with FNHA and VIHA, which means that we have a couple of stakeholders in the process and we are exchanging expertise with them. So it takes a while, I understand, and I apologize for the time that goes into this, but we are trying to bring you a program that will be, in all fairness, one of the better ones in the community, better ones in the province, and it will be a proper program that will address all the issues that the community faces. Going back to the point before, the community services part, I think you are mixing up two different aspects of it. One is community services and one is community wellness. So the community services program is the department is aimed solely at providing services within and around the community that will enrich the youth, the people, the community itself, and not dealing with healthcare. What you are describing is a need for community wellness and indigenous-based wellness at that. So in order to maintain the wellness of the community, as you rightly pointed out, Dr. Carrie Marshall came into the community and we took the advantage of having her in community. And that was done through UFN. It wasn't done previously. I don't know why and what was the reason before I joined, but we were going to do it last year, but because of COVID, it got delayed about a year or so. So in April this year, we had Dr. Marshall over here. And that was, the work was solely put together by UFN and FNHA a little bit, but mostly through us. That being said, Dr. Alter is our registered psychologist. He takes care of mental health and trauma within the community. We have a fair number of community members who visit Dr. Alter virtually and in person and get some support as they require. Along with that, we have an A&D counselor within the community who provides support to the cases that have already made contact to them. We have West Coast Mental Health, who target the patients that they know that will be requiring those kind of supports. West Coast Mental Health works with VIHA. They are VIHA, to be honest. So they have a permanent place in the community. They are here in community, in person, on Wednesdays and Thursdays, sometimes Wednesdays, sometimes on Thursdays, not both days, in order to accommodate the number of patients and their time. So the time is based according to the patient's time, not based on what the community, not what I say. So all in all, we are trying to provide a more rounded, streamlined structure of healthcare, of community services, and for social and education to our community members. The reason why it would feel that I think you are looking at the abridged version of my report. So it is not reflecting the entirety of what the community services department or education or social services or healthcare has done. So I hope that my comments were little help to you. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer those here or in person if you so wish. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go back to you, I'm just going to offer the president an opportunity if you wanted to add a few words.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, like Rohan talked about, I mean, addictions, I mean, relief center there that, I mean, you know, it became quite apparent, I mean, like, I mean, throughout this whole process of, I mean, things that with the COVID and how things were, I mean, basically on a lockdown, that we were looking at alternate, I mean, resources to sort of bring the ability to treat citizens and what do you call within the community or within local areas and sort of branch out to that so we could actually have, I mean, a West Coast version. It's just one of those things that, I mean, and that's part of our outreach and why we purchased the building in Port Alberni, so we can start having that outreach to our citizens that are on the street in Port Alberni, and then having the ability for, I mean, some of our staff to go up there and actually have the one-on-one and sort of start welcoming our citizens and have a place to maybe have a meal, a coffee, and sort of interact. And if they need things that, I mean, it'll be a regular, I mean, you know, open 5 days a week type thing. And then there'll be times for our professional staff to be there too. So those are things that are, you know, it might not seem like, I mean, we're moving to that, but I mean, we've already started those wheels, I mean, moving, I mean, basically a few months ago. So just wanted to comment on.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up or is it a new question?
Follow-up.
Okay.
So, you know, I could hear what Rohan was saying, and one of my concerns as a Cixŵatin citizen is that when we start, like this is what I'm seeing. It's like programs that belong to Cixŵatin have been divided and separated. It's like now our children and youth who want to connect to counselors have to go over here. Now adults, you know, have to, well, some adults are lucky to have the psychologist, but my concern is that when we separate the programs and keep the services out of the community and hand out our money to say, you know, here, you guys will take care of this. Here, you do this, you do that. It takes away from who we are as Cixŵatin. Our identity is not in that service. And that's a big red flag to me. And I'm advocating for who we are as Cixŵatin to be visible in those programs. And currently it's being all teased apart to save money, I'm guessing. So I wanted to say that. And one of the teachings that's really resonating for me, and I want to say thank you to Richard. I went to a rally across the bay after one of the police shootings. And I was in a place of anger. You know, I was so mad. That young woman, that Cixŵatin woman that was shot back east. And Richard stood up there and he said, he reminded everybody there that who we are as New Chanoth is we are a loving people. And when he said that, it was just like, oh, yeah. So I want to finish with that. My intention up here is not to, you know, point fingers. I want to advocate, and I'm willing to help, you know. So I also want to say thank you to you all for the work that you do. I know it's not easy, and especially through the pandemic, you know, that was difficult, and we survived that pandemic. Anyway, thank you for listening to.
Clicko, Gordon.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to the trauma. For the past, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks on the news, I'm sure it impacts a lot of us that have been in residential school system. My wife asked me, why do I change a channel every time that type of news comes on? Because it hurts. My grandfather, my parents, my brother and I going through that system. And I seen a post by Jenna Miller to the government. Letters from governments, from treaty, First Nations, to the federal government about the residential schools and finding unmarked graves, and the push for the government for more investigative action. What are we going to do for our own? Because it does open up a can of worms. I'm sure a lot of others that are here struggle through the same thing when they see that news about how children are treated in that school system. And it's not just the treatment of what happened in the school, it's what happened after. How grandpa, how parents, how they went through their lifestyle, how it affected their children and grandchildren. I had to tell my kids about it, and it was a very heartfelt conversation of what I felt my grandparents and my parents have gone through, as well as my brother and sister, as well as the numerous people from here that had to attend residential schools. So when we speak about trauma, what are we going to do about that? Yes, there's supposed to be reconciliation, but it seems to be far behind. When more residential school news comes out, and it's all bad news, it brings out all the negativity in other people, where they start backlashing against First Nations people. And what are we going to do about it? How are we going to break this cycle? You know, it still hurts me to speak about it, and I'm sure it affects a lot of other people here. It's just I want to be assured that it's not just talk about reconciliation, but what sort of programs can be put in place, you know, not just the 1-800 line that we can call. I'd rather meet somebody face to face to have that talk so they can learn about the experience that we've gone through. My father said it was hard for him to talk about. He couldn't hug his kids. He couldn't say he loved them. The parents had a rough lifestyle. It wasn't just my parents, it was any First Nations that you had visited, you can see. You can identify with the struggles. So we need to change that. But how are we going to change it? Thank you.
Just a last speaker on this topic, and then we're going to move on the agenda. Larry?
Well, I wasn't going to say very much about the residential school, but I have to. I went to Alberni Residential School. What happened to me is a matter of record. We had a choice: destroy what happened to you or leave it for the public. Mine is there. I don't know where it is. I don't know how you get a hold, but something to do with residential school. You phone them up and you can see what happened to me. I was lucky. Working for the IWA in Port Alberni, I looked after and started their alcohol and drug program. It was called the Troubled Employees Program. I started that in Port Alberni many, many years ago. But the lucky part for me
It's you.
was I had a good counselor. Started off with a young lady from Ontario, very educated, very good counselor, but I was only allowed 10 visits. Then we had to find another place. Because I phoned in Vancouver. I was at the Bayshore, top floor. Phoned the helpline. And they said, we'll be there, Mr. Baird, right now, we'll come and get you. I said, you don't have to come and get me. I wouldn't have phoned you if I was going to bail off the 20th store. I said, I want help. I'm not about to dive off the 20th store. I want to see you at the end of the day. And I did. Did my 10 there, switched to a fella in Nanaimo, and he counseled me. I paid for my own counseling 2 days a week for about 4 or 5 years or longer. And then partway through that 5 years or whatever it was, he said, listen, he said, I've been to the States. I've been counseling Vietnam vets with something called PTSD. He said, I want to try it on you. It worked. I could never do this before. I still need help. That program has to be here. Has to be here. Can't be anywhere else. If you're going to go through what I went through in the residential school. I have memories today about asking the supervisor, where did Johnny go? Oh, his parents picked him up. Now we know where Johnny went. That was Alberni Indian Residential School that I was there. Right? So this program, the government hasn't given us enough. I gave most of the money away that I got for the residential school. I gave it to people that needed help. Because to me, it was an insult, not only to me, but if they paid a little guy, that's how big I was, X number of dollars, what do they pay ladies? What do they pay ladies when the same thing happens to them occasionally by disrespectful men, right? I just couldn't control myself accepting all of that money, so I gave most of it away. So the program has to begin here. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But we're here. I'm here. Gord's here. Others here. Right? And we never get called. We never get called. And I've said it before here. Not as much detail now. Because I did my interview here with Maureen, the late Maureen, and she's got a record. And then I did my testifying in Port Alberni. Late Richard Lucas was my witness. I had a hard time going through it, but I got through it. And they asked me the government asked me if I wanted my record destroyed. I said, no, I want everybody to read it. And what happened to this little 8, 9-year-old boy in the protection of adults. So if we're going to start, this is where we start. We start at home. And if we have to, we kick the government harder. Send that fellow after him to say, hey, look, we got residential school problems. Send him and the company he works with, Gary, he still works. I'm sure he would take that on, right? Because there are some people, I mean, this is going to go on unless we you know, I apologize to a lot of people, my family, my late wife, and those are things that you got to do so you end up being able to sleep at night, right? My last trip before I went to a counselor, I was heading down Cathedral Grove in my '79 Ford Bronco, and I had the biggest tree in Cathedral Grove lined up, because I was going to end it there. But then I thought, then I just created victims myself if I do that. My wife, my kids, my relatives. No, I couldn't do that. I couldn't have them say, oh, poor guy, and then sit back and say, well, wish he hadn't did that, wish he talked to us. So I'm still here to say and fight for a residential school, that it's got to be home here, and it's got to have people such as myself and Gordon, others that know a little bit about what we've been through. And I suggest anybody, go to the records, see what happened, see what really happened to a little guy that was supposed to be protected by the government. Then talk about it after and see what you come up with. Thank you for listening.
Clayco, the executive and the president have heard your words and take your recommendation on that. For the purposes of time on our agenda, I'm going to ask for the remaining executive members to give their reports, and then we'll turn to the floor for questions. So we're now on Lands and Resources, and I understand that Alan is on Zoom to do this report. Richard?
I know it's pretty hard for some of the leaders nowadays to hire other people, you know. It makes it a bit hard for them because you don't know who you're going to hire. They're so well educated, but the thing is, they don't know our language, a lot of them. We have to talk about, we're talking about residential schools. Okay, you guys talking about kids. To me, that's my goal. That's why I've done that across there on my own. You know, my own pride. My forefather, they used to do that for other people, invite other people from different tribes. Let's do this for pride. I'm speaking from the grave. My father was Moses Mundy. My mother was Josephine Mundy. She was a Spanish. Her name was Josephine Espinado. Her father was Joseph Espinado. She had a sister, lived in near Bay. That's where I was supposed to go to school. Her name is Nora Baker. That's where she lives. And you know, it's something that you guys talk about. If we're going to talk about kids, how are we going to bring them up? I have an idea. I know I've always had this. I talked about a lot with Barb. Down at Cix၀sir. Here we are. Let's say it's a talking stick. You know what a talking stick is? You take these little kids at the day school, ranch schools and stuff like that, and daycare. They hear these stories. You know about the totem pole, you know about talking stick. They hear that story, but they don't know what it is. But I was called from the parks. We'd like to put a museum. Where would you like to have it? I said, there's only one place. At Long Beach, where that culture sound was. Number one, because Barb was there. Her voice is there. You can move that to where that was. You know, it's very, very important to me to mention these things. You know, I'm doing this out of my pride. Not for me, for the tribe. I want them to see, okay, let's do it. Let's go with the little kids, the daycare. Show them what it is. here it is, kids, look what it is. You told a story. You're going to look at it. You know who you are. You got a house your mother and father built, and the playground there to watch you. And I went to another meeting there one time. Pearl Bernie, I was invited. This lady, she had to have 2-hour permission to go outside. You know where she went for a walk? Just around her house, 2 hours. That place there, our forefathers, ancestors, they met our village prison camp, right there. You know, it gets very hard for these people that are leaders. I know a lot of people say, well, we don't like them. Who do you want? This is the reason why I say we got to treat our kids from daycare. Here we are, kids. You have to learn how to introduce yourself properly. And when the time comes, tell them who you heard from, where you heard it from. Say it loud and clear. And now we lost a lot of things. There are people that say, Chalchamate, Naatahan, Wakanakushin. Intelligent people, please listen to us. We're all together here now. I know my late cousin. I talk a lot about him, Harold Tucci. He was very strong. He said, Richard, you know what to do. Don't ever go away from it. Help people. If you can do it, they might try and hurt you. You got a very strong spirit. Talk about spiritual. And that's what we're doing. A lot of us. A lot of people are scared to talk about that because there's no love for anybody now. Like the old people used to say, come over here, I'll help you. And these are the things I know my Aunt May. She was my teacher. Now, listen to me what I'm going to say. We're strong as eagle, every lady. They spread their wings out, protect the little ones. That's what I want you guys to do. So they can protect them. Here we are. You can go to the restaurant or you go to the hospital. Is there anything I can do to ease your pain? There it is again, that eagle. Women and girls are very strong. And Harold says, don't ever give up. Go one direction, forward. Why can't we be like this totem pole, stick together? Stay together, back to back. We're going to protect what God left. That's what I'd like to see. You know, like I said before, it gets very hard for the staff to hire anybody because they're making the business. I know it's very hard for them to hire somebody. They got to choose this and choose that and stuff like that. But like I said, Harold would never give up. Go forward, stick together. That's why I say we have to take to the daycare. Here we are. That's why I like to see it. That's what my point is, you know. Like when I got that going across there, I did it for my pride, for myself. Like you're talking about residential school, I went there. I was glad that me and Tom Curley, we were the 2 oldest survivors from Christian school. We were there, we survived. Someone came up to me, phoned me, do you know where we could look? I said, you could be a number of different places. Staff was up all night, day and night, wandering around. We don't know where it is. But when I ran away, there's a field there. It's all swamp. You go under there and come out the other side. I hear people run behind me, 2, 3 weeks when they're in. I said, it says where I'm going to die. In my head. I was scared. This is where I'm going to die. I don't know where it is. It could be anywhere there. You know, there was a lot of things that happened that we couldn't say at all at Christian school. We've seen a lot of things happen. You know, I'd like to see this come back. The leaders can do this. I'll talk to Chuck here. You can try and take it to the, like I say, daycare. Okay, this is it. I'm going to show you my talking stick. You can show them there and stuff. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead. One direction. We've lost enough. We're going to protect what God left. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Cleko, thank you so much for the words and the guidance.
I'm sorry to take up your time, but
That's
Richard
okay.
did say, stand with me in our culture. If he thinks he's going to lose it, he would ask someone to help. I would just like to say that we're all hurting a lot of times when the residential school issues come up. And that was something he really wanted to relay to this group. And we're stronger in our own language. Cixʷatin Hupi inasa we akshel kun anin hishukni ihmesak istaqshilqan قوأس وكيشما نحي لكويت هشوكن على نشوك سقط معاك شو
Cleko. Okay, President Chuck.
Yeah, just, I understand about, the residential school, I put 5 years in probably some of the worst times when Plint was, infamous Plint and all the things that, remember we ran away, me and Richard Hall, we ran away from that place too because, we witnessed the violence, everything was just, the world was just, there was no caring there, right? And I know what everybody goes through and, I relate it to my children about what I can talk about, but I think just, touching on that, and I remember Marge, I remember your dad, she fished with me too, right? He talked about when he hid in the bush and he ran, but they got his brother, right? And I said that was the last day he ever seen him. He died at school. So I remember those things. I had the fortune to fish with a lot of the old timers. I was a young guy here, with 17 when I took over, but my dad's boat, my dad died, but I had the fortune to fish with all the old timers and listen to what they had to say. So I understand about, the pain and where everybody's coming from when we talk about those things. And it's, I don't know, it's just hard to move forward. I think that's all. Just want everybody to grieve and feel for everybody too.
Does anybody see? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Cleko. To finish up with our meeting this evening, not to take away from any of the words that have been shared and expressed. Just want to acknowledge everyone for sharing this evening. I'm going to recommend that the remaining executive members provide their reports, and then we'll finish with the questions. And we have a couple of items left to discuss, including security and outreach, the 50 Fish, and the Mount Ozark. I apologize, I watched too much Netflix. I referred to it as Mount Ozark earlier. Ozark. So I'm going to go off my list and I'm going to ask Alan, I believe he's on Zoom, to provide us with the lands and resources report. Oh, I've got you on, sorry, the referendum. Thank you. Is Alan online? Alan?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to have a difficult time just doing the report. I'll do the best I can. Apologize for not being there, but all that's been talked about is residential school. I think it's taken its toll on my mental health. Some of the highlights from my portfolio would be the wire surf shop, lands and title transfer, specific claims, case, traditional foods, but I think that was discussed earlier with Suzanne, land management, and also ACRD and the West Coast Committee. For the wire surf shop, I guess they do have a license of occupation now in effect. Land title, unfortunately, now we have 10 nearly completed transfers have been sent to legal for final stages. Also having Zoe here now to working on this file with the Mac and Blow Telegraph and Mint claims near final stage, looking at between $10 and $12 million settlement for YG sometime in 2022. Looking at our traditional foods and that, so we've gotten some fresh sockeye this year. They're looking at downsizing the cities they're going to from 8 to 6. Switching fresh fish for our rural areas to reduce the processing fees. A little bit of issues with our transportation truck as far as the registration goes, so it'll be down for a little while. Got a new signed agreement with Interfor deal within the Effingham. We also signed a MOU with for co-management Roosevelt Elk with the Tokort Nation and East Huthat. So we get sort of combining our traditional territories together to try and at some point get us more elk, because we're not having too much success with the Namint. It's not recovering fast enough. Also with the Alberni Ridge Clock, one of the biggest ones we're dealing with right now, our CAO Doug Holmes has moved on, so the ACRD has obtained the services of Innovative Strategy Group to conduct a CAO recruitment process. Also with the West Coast Committee, it's a subcommittee of the ACRD. We had a report from BC Transit. BC Transit recommends to implement the bus service by September of 2022. So they're taking it like a phased approach, like a two-phase approach. I guess just an example would be in the phase one, just sort of just to implement services using a light-duty bus, looking for maintenance to be provided through a third-party provider. Phase two would be like the purchase of lease or purchase of land or leasing of land, and just be a cost-efficient facility style, like prefabricated and that. So we talk about this residential, come up with the children they found on January 8th. Being on the ACRD board, the the chair of the meeting held a minute of silence to acknowledge what's going on and what's happening within that residential issues, but also he gave an opportunity to the Manus First Nations to speak, and he knew that there was residential survivors there, and I think he knew that I had gone, so I did speak to it. I think that in the last month and a half, it's really taken its toll, and as far as things have come up, and just that the grieving part of, thinking about, first thought in my mind was, like when, and I know it's not the right thing to think about, but it's, like, why me? I survived. Well, I'm having a lot of difficulty with that, so basically that's why I was so afraid to come up, because I know that it's, I'm tired of pushing it down. So, and I think what the difficulty is, and I've heard, is not having that connection between my support work or my support network with the friends or the family or the community, because it almost feels like I've heard it's like we're standing alone here when I try to speak to it, but it's a difficult thing, because 4 out of 7 in my family went, and none of us have said a word about it until 2-3 weeks ago. And it's trying to find that healing process. I think that's the hardest part. And I know that we have the psychologist here, and I've had a couple, talk to him a little bit, just try to find my way through. And I know over the years with the late Ray Seacher, he's given me some tools to get through some of this stuff, but because of the trauma, I just forget all about it, and so I just sort of walking aimlessly, I guess, and I think that's, Gordon, I saw you today, and it was good to see you, and I think that's what I was doing. I was just trying to walk this stuff off, but, to try to find some happiness throughout the day, right? Sorry, that's all I've got.
Cixwo. Thank you, Alan. I don't know if you can hear in the room the support for what you're experiencing, and calling for you to reach out at any time. I'm going to ask for verbal updates. Richard, for finance.
Uklama, Tlisayas, Yusuasat. My father is Richard Mundy Sr., and my mother is Carol Astrom. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our first in-person assembly since probably over a year ago. It's good to see your familiar faces again after so long doing Zoom meetings and not being able to visit. So it feels a little unusual to be here in the gymnasium, and I was a little anxious about it, but I'm glad I came. And I want to get out of the way just kind of the emotion that's filling the room right now is affecting me as well. And I just want to acknowledge the value in hearing what everyone has shared tonight and acknowledging the pain. It's very evident that this is an important moment in time, and despite the fact that a lot of this information is inundating us through the media, and it's awakening a monster of sorts across the country, which is a little frightening in itself. But I think that as a nation and with the elders that we have left that are willing to share that we have the strength to move forward and overcome and make the right decisions for future generations. So just a brief finance update. I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of our finance team who have been carrying on like clockwork to ensure that bills get paid and departments have the resources they require to fulfill their mandates. A key focus over the past year has been revising and updating the Adagio system, which is an accounting system enabling finance to quickly and efficiently enter large volumes of transactions and generate meaningful reports, providing us with accurate information to form proper policies and make sound decisions. Another primary goal has been to clearly identify our funding sources and match them with respective expenses. This will improve tracking of funds and improve accountability. With appreciation to Melody, Sheila, and Carrie, we're nearing to being up to date in most areas and should be complete in a few months. We're also planning to soon fill a vacant position in this department, which will further facilitate timely reports and take some of the pressure off of our CFO, who has spent much of the past year getting our house in order so we can chart a clear path forward in the day-to-day administration of our finances and turning our attention to longer-term planning and initiatives. Well, with regard to financial records and reporting, preparations for the audit have begun, with the auditors due within a week. Upon completion of the audit and training of new staff, the finance focus will shift to a number of things, including a strategic plan, multi-year budget planning, further development of finance policies and procedures, and a budget process for tangible capital assets. And finally, I'd like to express appreciation to the Finance Committee, who have been actively involved in their roles to assist the legislature in fulfilling our obligation to manage and control the finances of the youth Cixŵatin government. So that's the end of my update. I'm happy to take any questions you may have and do my best to respond with support from our CFO, John Rankin, who's online. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We're just going to finish the remaining executive reports and then we'll have time for questions. Geneva?
My apologies, there is a report that was distributed. So let's start off. So for our Indigenous Cultural Heritage Infrastructure Grant, UFN was one of 11 successful recipients of the grant out of over 100 other First Nations. I do have to say, I am so proud of our Culture and Heritage Department. I brag often. They do absolutely magical things and they're doing so much work. So I just want to throw that out there. Funding is going towards a beautiful mini big house with 2 offices that will be attached. And then the community cultural space will be open to the community for ceremony, for gatherings, workshops, and classes, etc. There's continued work on the cultural library. We have custom cabinetry installed in the cultural library. All of this has kind of been happening behind the scenes. We are still just finishing off this tail end of COVID. So everything will kind of be opening up eventually. 9 of the 11 repatriated artifacts from the Canadian Museum of History are currently on display. The transfer and custodial agreements currently underway for the remaining 33 items at the museum, and the 16 items to be transferred from the Royal BC Museum. We have 17 additional items that have been identified in 3 other museums. The Cixŵatin language program. So we have a successful language program delivered via Zoom. They've been learning since September of last year. We had about 35 students. Second class is going to be finishing up at the end of July. So our classes are really unique. We're one of the few nations where our students are actually getting paid to learn language versus the other way where me as a current student right now, I pay to learn my language. So I'm happy to see it go the other way. One of the students stepped up and started teaching a beginner class. So our students are starting to take language with them and teaching beyond, which is amazing. So we had a successful Pathways to Language Vitality grant funding for $60,000 to continue these classes into next year. And Tyson introduced himself in the language earlier, and I was so proud. I can really hear your back H pop out, so thank you for that. And I guess that must be the eternal teacher, but some of my students are here. So we have Rose in the back here. She's wearing proudly her sweater, Cixŭatin Centre. She did her first 60 survival phrases. She passed with flying colors, so please feel free to ask her. Marge, feel free to ask your language. So for signage for Quizzitis Village and Chumata, we have bilingual English and neutral Quizzitis Village signage being built by Yelmer Wenstob, and UFN members acknowledging the totem carved by the late James Coots and the traditional village site of Quizzitis. We have another signage under construction for Chumata, Mount Ozard, welcoming visitors, acknowledging the importance of Chumata and displaying the trail map. For our Culture and Heritage Department, they have grown. We have Carrie, obviously our manager, Bernice, Samantha, Ron George, James Walton, and Tyson Tucci Jr. For our upcoming activities, we have in-person language classes for the fall, which is exciting. Continued recording and production of cultural content films with UFN citizens for the community, and continued work on traditional place name maps to be completed and made available to the UFN, and provide continued language and cultural programming for hopefully everyone. I've also been participating in the bi-weekly executive meetings, and I participated in a ceremony that was put together not too long after the initial 215 was announced. And it was really great to gather outside, even if it was a social distance. I think we all really needed that. And been participating in personnel committee meetings over the last year or so. So Chu Oshiak Shiklit.
Clayco, thank you very much. It's very uplifting to hear all of the great resurgence of culture and language within the community. Thank you for that report. This will be our last report of the evening. I'm going to turn it over to Chuck.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, a lot of the meetings that I attend are just with the executive, and a lot of the same related reports are parallel to their reports. But some of it is like the what the heck is it now? The Public Order and Safety Act. We'll be looking at, I think we were supposed to be reading that today, but there were some problems with the highway and getting through. So, we'll be looking at, the second reading of that tomorrow. And the zoning and, not the zoning and structures, but yeah, the zoning and structures, that will be, being updated too, or I think it's in the progress of, being finalized over the next few days, and we'll be putting that so we can actually start reflecting on the lands that we're going to be using to, develop, and what that'll look like, and sort of reflect what, Waya Point and what different areas will reflect what the zoning and structures are, rather than, we can't actually build houses in different places. Or so once we get this done, we're looking at, developing lots up, I think towards the end of Sutton Road, or up by the lake there, half-acre lots, where we'll be able to have the potential to build housing for, or have lots available for people that are interested in building their own homes in that area. And we've been looking at, development of a proper mobile home park, or RV park. So, we can start having a designated area, proper hookups for, sewer and electrical, which is not going to just sort of be in, it'll be a designated area with, I mean, proper hookups rather than how I think everybody sort of sees what, I mean, has been transpiring where we have, I mean, older RVs and it becomes health hazards for our citizens. So that is in the works. In regards for incidents that happened, I mean, earlier in this year with, I mean, the shooting within the community. I mean, I had a number of conversations with the IIO leading up to, you know, the release of our release of what happened. I think the main point was, I mean, for us to get the facts before we sort of jumped the gun and started to come into conclusion of what actually happened, and we didn't want to be on that and have to retract what our statements were. But I think one of the things too that, I mean, I do agree with, I mean, with you know, is having accountability with body cams for, I mean, police officers and maybe a potential for a liaison within the community. I mean, those have been discussed, I think, with, I mean, Lori sitting on that, I can't remember what that committee is with NTC, but I mean, those are issues that have been, I mean, ongoing. Then the other thing that I think Al touched on was, I mean, that the executive and, I mean, I've been working with Zolian and our professional people that are in that group is, I mean, the potential for our specific claims, which, I mean, amounts to actually quite a bit. I mean, hopefully, I mean, I think you're never sure on what you're going to get, but I think our outlook looks pretty good on what, I mean, on the M&B, I mean, you know, the amount of cubic meters that went through our land and the high grading of timber within some of our cut blocks. You know, I think this goes back to when Jack Patrick and them were, I mean, council of the day. So similar to, I mean, Huet and their cut off specific claims. So the other thing is, I mean, on the fishing front, I mean, the Me Too clause, I mean, which, I mean, we've figured that, I mean, that us as a nation, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the Me Too clause, is what, I mean, the Treaty Nations Monmouth, I mean, our expectations were to move forward with once the finalization of the Housett case, that we would be following into our process of, I mean, accessing those resources. One of the things that, I mean, that did come up is, I mean, Canada figures that those triggers haven't been triggered up until just lately when there's not going to be an appeal for the Housett case. But one of the things that was, I mean, in our view is that I mean, as far as the Monmouth was concerned, and that we've already, I mean, started those negotiations, but I mean, apparently, I guess there'll be another meeting leading up to what's actually going to be discussed and where we're really at with it, I guess. And then Monmouth, I mean, monthly meetings, attended those with the rest of the Monmouth. One of the other things is the Mumuk. As everybody knows, we're 1/5 owner of, I mean, Mumuk Natural Resources, which is, I mean, a logging company and logs in Cix၀Sound. I mean, one of the ongoing issues that we've had here is, like, I mean, I think there's a movement for the, I can't remember what the heck they are. Is it the Greens? It's not the Greens, but I mean, it's the Conservancy, is it? Conservancy wants to sort of buy it out, and I think you know, there's value there. I mean, what they valued the company at was, I think, $12 million. But I think when you look at it, what the value is, I mean, it's probably 5 times or 4 or 5 times the amount. And then I think one of our position is, I mean, if even though it is in, I mean, not in our territory, we're still 1/5 owner of that company, and we want to get us what our equal share of the 1/5 of the company would be appropriate for us. And I think that's where we stand with that. And one of the things that I did on there, I resigned as, director on that company because, Zoli is a forester, and that's his profession. He's worked with forestry companies throughout his life, and I think he'd be of more value on what we're seeking and how to evaluate and where we are going with, our potential, if there is a buyout, or where we're going with that. Yeah, so that's like I mentioned. A lot of my meetings sort of overlap with. The community services, lands and resources, and economic development. We are looking, like at different things that we can potentially move forward, and we are looking to. Just in my view, is take the initiative. Back to, I guess it would be ownership, and priority is to reflect, our people to be representative. When they first come to, the fork in the road, I guess, is where the welcome center, it's been my view that, I think when we sort of look at it, it doesn't really reflect us when you turn left there. Or it just at times I don't know. I think it's just my own personal opinion as the president. It's becomes an eyesore, and that's something that we don't want to. Be reflective of who we are as a nation. So, and there's a lot of different, potential. That we, I'm not just talking about, at the junction, but entrepreneurship. That we should be actually moving forward on. Tourism here and those type of things. So, and cultural tours. A lot of the things that I see as, every day that I look. I see kayaks going by, and it's just almost it's like a license to print money, right? So, and I think that is one of the things that we should be front and center on. And the other thing I think if you look at when you come to the junction now, there was a flag there, that Ututut flag now sits at the, what is the name of that? It's a welcome center? No. Yeah, it's across from the Welcome Center anyway. So our flag is actually there, and we haven't released the statement yet. I've talked to try to get a hold of Westerly, and it's one of the things that it's recognition. I see it as recognition of whose land. When you turn left or when you're at the junction of whose land you're on, and I said one thing is too is that. Eekoo, and we have a good relationship with, Mako, at least I do. And the thing is, the district of Eekoo has to understand, in my view, is Eekoo, the town of Eekoo is built on the ancestral grounds of our people. And that is one of the things that I think is, relevant and important to take our stand here where we are. We're not going anywhere. And that's how my view is. And I think, working together with, the mayor and having that partnership, goes a long way. And I think it's, one of those things that I think will evolve over time. And, even like this residential school, the 215, the celebration was at a minimal. And it was as soon as they did, and a couple of things that went ahead were actually already, the children's component of that was already in motion. But I think having that discussion on with, the council over there and, you know, where we are. And I think there's a lot of, I mean, confusion on how do we move forward? I mean, even as a nation, as a community, as their community. So building on those, I mean, relationships with our partners that live in the peninsula here, I think is really reflective of, I mean, where we're going to go as a community and build our strength and our unite us. And, you know, I mean, yourself, I mean, there will always be people that don't necessarily agree on where we are and whatever. And there's always going to be the people that are just going to say, you know, get over it and all this other stuff. But I think, I mean, looking on a positive level, I think if we don't move forward on a positive thing and what we can do and move forward, I mean, we won't be. And I think that's, I mean, you hear it, you know, it's about working together. And, you know, I mean, I've had this discussion with, I mean, a number of different people from our community. I was just telling, I can't remember who I was talking to. It was earlier, I was saying, when I was in the hospital, when I was 16, 17 years old, when my dad died, I still have all the letters, the get well cards from people of this community back then. I have Lawrence, Bella, I have everybody's, I mean, that sent, you know, to this day. I have it wrapped up, and that's how I remember this community. And that's what gets me through some of the times is when you look back and how people were. And, you know, when people helped each other and move forward, I think those are the, you know, you never had to ask for help. It was an expectation that somebody, if they seen you and you'd pack it up. I remember Johnny Tucci doing the same thing. We'd help him. You know, he always had a box on his shoulder and a case of pop or whatever under his arm walking up the dock, you know. But I mean, a lot of those things, I mean, reflective. If we could even get a bit of that back, I guess is what I'm saying is, you know, we can move forward in a positive manner. And I think having that, you know, is imperative to, if we're going to move forward. And I think that's, for me, is, you know, the most important thing that I can even think of or fathom. So, and I know, like Marge always says, it's always, I mean, stronger when you say it in your language, but those are things that come from my heart and how I feel. So, and I seen that here tonight. That's it.
So I'd just like to encourage folks that have, so for security and outreach, the 50 Fish and the Mount Ozard, this may be the time to come forward and ask questions on those issues. Gordon.
I just had a question, President, on his report.
Yes.
The proposed housing development, subdivision, RVs, whatever type of development we're looking into. We have a OCP that was created by your government back in 2011. Have you guys reviewed the OCP? And also in the commitment of sustainable development, which that commitment was to go green. I'd like to see that. I know, Jenny, last time we had spoken, you had invited me to come speak, and I hope that's still open because that's part of my passion and how Cixŵatin develops in the future. Being very environmental conscious, and I'm hoping that when you do talk about housing development, that you review the OCP and review that commitment of developing sustainably, whether it's residential, commercial, or industrial. We have to be able to adapt. You look at the goals of Canada, you look at the goals of the Paris Agreement, there's a time frame that all of us need to commit to in future development. So I'd just like to encourage that. On the other thing, I like what you said about the junction and the challenges being met by our own members on trying to operate a business on treaty settlement land. To be able to have that opportunity to showcase what Cixŵatin is about. You look at the junction right now, and we have one business there that's mine, that's on there. We used to have Waya Point Surf Shop. We used to have a food truck. We used to have lots of employment down at Waya Point Resort. People are asking where is the cultural presence there? Where's First Nation members there that talked about our nation and our history? There's a lot of things lacking down at Waya, as well as the junction. I know a lot of things, COVID-19 put a lot of stall in a lot of things. We look at Quisitus. Chuck, you spoke about tourism. You see all the kayaks. There's also a lot of surfers. We need to tap into that. Like you said, it's important we create those partnerships with other businesses within the district. They are willing to provide training to nation members, whether it be kayak guides or trail guides, and to encourage Tyson. You carry a lot of knowledge. I'd like an open invite to you to come work with us. It's important, like you said, Chuck, that we begin to showcase our culture. I stated that many years ago when we used to have practice nights here, that I'd invite the guests to come out to see us practicing our culture. It doesn't necessarily have to be songs that belong to heads of families. We have songs that belong to community. So we need to get to that point as well. I know safety is a concern, but you look at what's going on around us. In your report, there was talk about paths being built within our community. Why don't we consider a path and partnering up with the district so that we can get one right to the highway? Because we have to look at community transportation. Not everybody can own a vehicle. What if we opened up a path where they can bike ride or some other type of e-transport, just so that we don't fall into that. My late dad had an accident on the road. He ran into a biker, and it was just the time of day. You just couldn't see him. So I think in your discussion of building a path, that we consider building a path to our highway. Because there is a lot of people that walk along there. There is a small amount of bikes that use it. So let's also have a consideration for that. Thank you.
Thank you. So the question is around going green, and has the OCP from 2011 been reviewed? Does any of the executive members want to respond to the question? Jenny?
Thanks so much, Gordon. Just to touch on the OCP, yes, it has been reviewed, and there will be some proposed changes just to allow for that growth of the community. Some of the things that we're struggling with is the cost to expand our community. We only have such a small footprint, and for us to be able to allow people to buy their lots or to look at building a home of their own, who maybe don't want to stay in a government-owned house for the rest of their life, we need to look at what's beyond what we've currently got planned. So there are some proposed amendments into the OCP that will accommodate that. And to touch on your other question about the commitment for green housing and infrastructure, absolutely the invite still stands. One of the things that I have talked about in terms of land development that we do is I too am in the same boat. I prefer to have more green and sustainable choices be made. It is honestly easy to grab a plan off of the shelf and say, let's build this. But I really have a vision for us to be at the forefront of looking at sustainable and cost-effective housing. And I think that we have a lot of opportunity to make that happen. It just takes a little bit of time and research and commitment for us to pursue those opportunities. So absolutely, I hear you. And that is definitely something that I will push for as well.
The other question I had that pertains to this as well is you guys talked about amending the Building Instructors Act. And just recently I had a review of that act. And the Building Instructors Act, I think basically is more geared toward residential building development than it is anything to do with commercial or industrial building. So those adjustments need to be made to address commercial and industrial building. Because if you look at our laws, they're applicable to residential building. I don't know how we can use those laws when it comes to commercial, because if anybody looks at that, they'll go, well, that's not really pertaining to my development. So I just want to make sure that in my review of that, I'm sure there's others out there that looked at it that come across the same. So it's just making sure that any type of Building Instructors Act, making sure that it's applicable not to just residential building, it's applicable any type.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon, for your suggestion. Tyson?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about our participation in tourism. And to me, it's nice and fine to say that, let's move ahead. It's going to be okay if we all get along. But that's not what happens. And for me, I've only felt frustration in the last 10 years. The last 4, I operated the surf shop and worked with how many different CEOs, I don't even know anymore. But for me, there was absolutely no support. And I watched my neighbor who was operating the food truck take over our Welcome Waya Center and brag to everybody that he got the price chopped down by $20,000. He bragged about it and openly went around the community saying, I'm going to buy all the Indians' land. And that just got me so mad. Totally befriended this guy. Nothing to do with him. And then to have not a single person come sit down and talk with me at the surf shop about what we could do, what we can do better there. Because I was all ears, totally willing to sit down with anybody to talk about how we could make it better. Not once. It was, let's get market rates for this property. And we can't compete right now. We're nowhere near there to compete with world-class tourism operations in Ucluelet and Tofino. And to me, I thought that was obvious. But the support out there was, I seen Gloria and the kids, looked forward to that every summer. I think I seen Jenny came out and rented some gear and even donated a couple rentals to some kids. And that's it. We never once sat down and talked about how we can do better. And, that was disheartening. And I was really glad when Gordon came by and he really did extend himself. He says, yeah, I want to be partners. I want to be partners. And I was really happy that he did get his business up and going, that it is out there at the junction. There's a presence there. But I haven't even walked into the surf shop yet. And to be honest, I don't want to get back into that business again. And that's the result. I really do want to stick with tourism. I really enjoy it. I like sharing our culture and our history with people that are visiting from all over the world, and so do they. but that stings. I don't feel like there's any relationship built with our company, with our nation. I'm encouraged that Gordon is, and Daphne as well. She's starting a charter. Captain Kirk, he seems to be doing well. But I'm really containing my anger and frustration. And I think I'm not over it yet. I still feel angry, but I want to stick with tourism. I enjoy it, but sometimes it's hard for me to see that opportunity and to be optimistic. And, I just seen 4 or 5 jobs flushed down the toilet. All those Cixŵatin that were proudly working out there. I don't think there's anybody there now. I know there isn't now. So as far as our outlook out there, I think there needs to be much more, there needs to be a plan. So at the end of this lease, this is what we're gonna do. That's what I'd like to hear. I'd like to say, well, right on, I'm all in. I'm willing to invest. And I'm sure others would too. But from what's happened so far, it's not encouraging. And I almost felt like there was more opportunities opening up across the bay. And to me, that's not what I want. I want to contribute to our people. And I'm really proud that Gord can stand up, his kids and Kalina, they're all good folks. Stand them up proudly. He didn't need a policy to tell him to hire his own people. He did it because he loved them. And that was the same for me too. So yeah, I hope there's a plan. I hope there's something that laid out at the end of this lease that makes some opportunity for entrepreneurs out there, because we do have entrepreneurs, but as far as opportunity, I'm not hearing it or seeing it. So I would hold our company's feet to the fire and our legislature to show some leadership there. Because from what I heard from the current tenant, it's not looking that bright at all. So I don't really have a question, but I really wanted to put that out. I'm a compassionate guy. I really think about our family and our people. But as far as that goes, that's not there. True.
Cixwo, thank you for your comments. Yes.
Yeah, I was just grateful that you mentioned the police shooting, Chuck. For me and what I know about trauma, it all comes back to prevention and intervention. If this couple had the support when they were children, there's no way they would have been in that situation in the first place. And so again, I'm really pleading for more support for our children. I value education, but it's not all education. They need emotional support, spiritual support. They need their identity. They need to know who they are as Cixŵatin. And I really want to raise my hands up to all of you residential school survivors. I didn't go to residential school. My parents, my grandparents, aunties, uncles, cousins did. And what I heard you saying is that you had connection to community. A lot has changed since you were 16, 17. Many of our kids don't have that. I've worked most of my life to change that legacy in my family. Tyson and I quit drinking when we were 18, 19. We've been doing our healing. I make him feel, just kidding. But it takes work. Some of our kids don't have that support, you know, and that's one of the things that I'm so grateful for, that we're able to live in Bernice and late Eugene's house, where we're able to raise our children in a good way. And something else that I want to say is that, yes, psychologists are great, but again, that's a Western approach. Psychology focuses on individual behavior. We are a community people where relationship is critical. And so if you have, and I value psychology, I have my own therapist, but we also need to be able to provide the community, family support. And yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Clicko. I'd like us to move on to the security. Oh, did you want to bring up the Mount Ozark?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, just like, thank you, Madam Chair. I got Tyson beside me because we want to talk about Chumata. Tyson told me a really nice story about Chumata, and I hope that all of you legislator, executive members understand the cultural significance of Chumata, how it's tied to the Tyee, how it was created, the wolf pack. Have a better understanding about Chumata, not just its cultural significance, but that it belongs to Yukula First Nation. It's Yuklutha. It's an important watershed. And this is going to be the environmental side of me coming out. I read the report that was presented through us through treaty about Chumata, about the logging activities, about the crown roads, about the mountain was 70% damaged when it was given to us. So it has a long healing time. And we want assurances that Chumata is going to be taken care of properly. Last year, the government posted land disposition. In the treaty, it states X amount of acres is supposed to go to referendum, is my understanding of the treaty. I've seen Facebook posts in this process of the permit of the land disposition to UMBA. It's created a lot of great work for the warriors, but we want to make sure that this mountain, Chumata, does not get further damage from any other activity. I want to make sure it's never logged again. I want to study from this day on the impacts of what's been going on there. There was a new road cut in, and a lot of land was taken away from that. When they came to us in, I think when we got elected between 2015 and 2019, they'd indicated that there was only supposed to be X amount of land exposed. So when I did my walk up there, was, wow, it's bigger than what they had stated to us. So did you guys get a report on that when they developed that new section of road? And what are your thoughts of it? Has anybody been up there from Land and Resources to see if there's going to be any impact from the development of that road? Any reports from the nation itself on what the warriors are doing, or what the UMBA is doing with the nation, or is it not associated with it? How do they report? I'd also talked to Gord Johns. It wasn't just specific to Mount Ozark, it was just specific to mountain biking. There was an announcement made 2 weeks ago by the federal government for bike pass, mountain pass to be developed. So when I talked to Gord Johns about it, he said, you have to approach your government. So approaching the government, there's an opportunity to develop trails within our mountain systems on the old logging roads, which we could hire warriors for to develop and maintain. You have to look at the uniqueness to bring this to our community. You look at the rest of the mainland. You look at Port Alberni itself. Gord Johns was there 2 weeks ago, promoting another mountain bike path. So we need to get to that point. We're talking about tourism. We're talking about it prints money. So we need government support for entrepreneurs such as ourselves to be able to accomplish those things and look at long-term goals, not short-term. Anything I look at, it's not a 3-year plan. Yes, I have a 5-year business plan, but I'm trying to look at my kids' retirement and what they can do for grandkids after that point of time. They need to understand the struggles that, as entrepreneurs, what we've gone through. This is my second business, and I want to be successful at it. I want to be successful at Ucluelet treaty lands. I don't want to be pushed into Ucluelet like Tyson had stated. We need the work of government and YFN, MS, and the operating boards. Because when you get into trying to develop a business, the doors that you have to keep opening, you open 3 doors, 2 of them slam on you. So you're working 14 months on a business plan to try to get something going. These are the challenges that are faced. So these are the things that we need to improve on. And just like Tyson stated, you know, like, what direction are we going to go in? If you look at the businesses that were developed 10 to 12 years ago, where's our involvement? I don't think there's any out there anymore. I don't know who works at Waya Point Resort. We know Waya Surf Shop is non-existent. Just to be able to come to our government for access to treaty land. There's another way to get onto treaty land, and as a government, you guys need to post that out there, that there's opportunity out there for entrepreneurs, that there's 2 hectares available, and that's going to disappear at the end of 2023 once we come into taxation. So that's a short time period. And to develop entrepreneurship between now and 2023, it's a tough road. We want to make sure that maybe from this starting point that it's a lesson, that you're able to listen to Tyson or I, whoever else is trying to be an entrepreneur, invite them here to tell success stories. I want to be able to tell a success story. I want Tyson to be able to come back and tell a success story. Anybody from Ucluelet First Nation to be able to come and say, hey, I got it done. But how did we get it done? You can't just do it on your own. We need help. And you just want to make sure that we start opening those doors rather than closing them. That we all have a better understanding of cultural significance. I don't think Ucluelet itself identifies cultural significance, and Mount Ozart has to be one of them. Jumada, the mountain, Jumada Beach as well. Late Harold Tucci used to tell me stories about the Black Rocks and how the name came about. And this was when I was too young. I was in my 20s at the time, so just trying to remember, but it's just that bits and pieces that come back. We need more people like Harold, the fishermen like yourself, Chuck, to be able to bring somebody out like Jack used to and say, the late Sammy McKay, to point out the points of interest, how you identify traveling around in the ocean. You don't need a compass. Landmarks. We traveled around in the fog. Mamachni couldn't follow us. So good on it. So I just want to make sure, you know, like when we do these things like Jumata, land dispositions, that the community is informed properly. You know, if it's over 10 acres, then we need to know about it, like here. But also to be able to say, hey, there's some other ideas coming up. Where can I go? Thank you.
Okay, so just in terms of the questions I've heard, the question is about a land disposition, and was there a study that was done? I'm just checking to see, was there land dispossession from treaty settlement lands?
I think that was, I mean, like you said, that was, I mean, within your guys' term, right? That you agreed with access to Mount Ozard through the defense or something, right? License of occupation?
Not that I recall.
Just, so I'm just gonna ask Brent if he can help clarify.
I'm just trying to remember what went on. This was back in 2020. There was at least conversations about issuing a license of occupation to the Eekoo Mountain Bike Association, which a license of occupation wouldn't be a disposition. I'm not finding on our system that it was ever finalized, but there was definitely a conversation in 2020 to allow mountain biking trails, but I just off the cuff, I can't tell you if it was finalized. But as a license of occupation, it's not a disposition of land, which wouldn't trigger the referendum provisions under the Land Act.
From what I recall, I seen a posting. I don't know if it was in the Westerly or not. It was described as a land disposition.
Yeah, it wasn't though.
Thank you. And then just economic development continues to be a theme tonight. So you're taking notes on that. Thank you. There's Larry?
Well, I think the only thing that's really going to solve some of the issues here is that we have, now that we're free from COVID, that we can sit down and do what we do best. Let's sit down and start discussing, throwing issues onto the table. And if you would be there as to chair the meeting and Brent, then maybe we can start clearing a path in terms of what some of the problems that I've just heard. And I kind of think that's not why we're in this treaty, right? To pull our people out and turn our businesses over to everybody else. The treaty was supposed to be a bit of a rainbow for us as individuals, that we're going to finally have our own land, getting some of our land back, that we can develop, that we can help our people. And just sitting there listening, it seems we started here and now we're slowly moving backwards without even the government doing anything. Maybe the government's going to win their war against us after all, the way we're acting. But I think we have to move forward. And the only way we're going to move forward is to sit down as citizens in this community. What do we want to do? What do we want to do? How are we going to move ahead? I know one of the things that I was told that our people were going to be in this job and that job. And yeah, we started out great with a bunch of people, a whole bunch of people working. Right? Next thing you know, they're gone. They're one at a time. They were disappearing. Kind of like Walmart, how Walmart started in Port Alberni. Walmart had hundreds of people working there. You go there now and see how many are working with all this modern technology and everything else. And my late wife would argue with some of the people that were working, and they're just praising Walmart for, I'm working here. Yeah, but you're doing away with, in the end, you're gonna lose. And they did. Guess what? They got all them electronic cash registered now. And the lanes that you used to go out of are there's only about 2 or 3 of them now, something like that. Before they had them all over the place, right? Because everything is push button. Like we're, you know, I got a phone in my pocket, turned it off this morning. Right? We live with these things. We live with a screen in front of us. It's great. I got mine for safety. If I break down on the highway or something, or somebody wants it, they can leave a message. That's fine. When I get to Port Alberni, I'll phone. Say, is it important? If it isn't, fine. But we've got to sit down and we've got to pull this community together again, like we started. I mean, we started out great. We built this building. We built 7 houses and we were moving, right? The community was going to be done. This is what we're going to do. We were going to have paths all over the place. We talked about building areas for like where this place is. It used to be a swamp, right? And where I live now used to be a field that our young people played. Some of the people lived, Jack was on there. He played on that field down there. Baseball, softball, right? Well, we don't have that anymore. So we've got to sit down and talk about moving ahead with, I mean, right now it's about economics and getting some of our people working. So the best suggestion I can make is that we call a meeting for, I don't know, 30 days, 90 days, or whatever we can do to get people, our entrepreneurs in this community, on the right path and spend money to train them to be. I mean, people are going to the government asking for this and asking for that. Well, it's about time that we started saying, hey, cough up some of that money. We want to train some entrepreneurs and whatnot. Right? Prepare them for something different because logging's gone. We got a little bit of timber, right? And I'm glad that got straightened out because when I heard the word green, I started to shake. I thought, oh no, clock with sound, here we go. I'm going to load up and I'm going to go after whoever the green is. Because we only got, we could probably do 10,000 or 12,000 cubic meters a year or something like that, and probably maybe provide 20 or 30 jobs or something for some of our folks on a part-time basis, right? And have some timber or whatever we need to do. But we've got to think. We got to think outside of the box. It's our grandpa, Chuck's and my grandpa, said, what you do when you're growing up, you take the best out of society that you need to get so you move ahead. That's very simple, very simple. And how do we do that? We train ourselves, right? And so let's have a meeting, and I certainly hope you're there and Brent, that we start laying a platform out as how are we going to get from A to B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And if we have to change it, modify it to make changes, let's do that. But if we got a plan, then we can budget other sources of money. Then we don't have to use our own money here to train our people to get into business. So that's what I'd like to see before. What I really like to see is this, that clause, that fishing clause, the Me Too clause. Well, me too, I'd like to be able to sell a fish legally from this reserve in the not too distant future, because I keep looking behind me and the old guy's chasing me, but he ain't gonna catch me until I sell my first legal fish here. I will be here until then, and I promised my granddaughter I'd be here till I'm 114, so. Help me move ahead. Help us, help our entrepreneurs that want to get into business and be independent. Let's help them. And the help that we can give is participating in whatever they want to do. If they want to build a restaurant and take a chance on building a restaurant, then that's where we go. That's where we go. Support as individuals. Then we're starting to do what we're supposed to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for those suggestions and recommendations. I'd like us to move on to the security and outreach question that was raised for the agenda. Tyson?
I was trying to be like Larry and not be on the mic so much. But I really wanted to say, ooh, shiak she clay. It's, I was looking towards, Geneva's my new teacher. I always tell her that she really reminds me of late Barb with her, the way she talks and pronounces things. I always hear her and it's really comforting. I just really like to thank the cooks and the servers for pulling all this together, and just really wanted to acknowledge Geneva, the culture and language program, right through a pandemic, still had language meetings over Zoom. I think I was showing my OLD when I couldn't follow along at times, but it was a really uplifting thing being locked down like that, but still being able to see our people struggle through our pronunciation. But I'm really appreciative and glad that Bob was there too, and I really appreciated Bob. Thank you to Cixŵatin. The food fish program I think was awesome. Holy, that was probably the best organized food fish I've ever seen. It was, especially with all my kids, so it was pretty neat. And I just really wanted to acknowledge Michelle Tucci. She, advocated to get us back in the gym here playing basketball. We had our first basketball game last Wednesday, which was my first game in like 2 years. And I'll be 50 next year, so, I got to last about 20 more. And I just really wanted to acknowledge people so, we could feel good about each other and that it isn't all doom and gloom. And, I do come across, I don't want to be angry. I really don't. I like joking around with Chuck. We crack jokes all the time. And I used to see Richard all the time. This is my first time seeing Richard in almost 2 years. And he used to come in and tell me all his stories at the surf shop. So it's really good to see our elders. And I know the residential school is a really difficult topic, but we're living with all the bad heat that came from that, the alcoholism and drugs. When I look in this room, I see all our people that are sober. Barely anybody in here drinks, barely any, maybe just a little bit. But I don't hear anybody in this room outside at 3 a.m. screaming their head off in pain. But that happens a lot. Where we live right in the middle of it, it's so frustrating. I'm a grandpa. More often the kids call me grandpa than uncle now. And it's so frustrating that I can't be compassionate. I think about everybody here that's trying to be healthy, that appreciates where they live, that loves Hitatsu. And yet we seem to enable that behavior, that screaming out, the fighting. We attract more people that cause a shooting in our community. And I heard something so disturbing that it gets me so mad. I heard one of our kids, who's about 13 years old, say, yeah, that's normal. And it's not. That's awful. And, I got to talk with some of the police, and I know the slippery slope they got to do to try do something about it. And they have their place. The RCMP has their place. But it comes right back to us having to do something. It has to be our people. And I know when we were during the pandemic, I would see Larry Jack come drive around in his SUV and just check. Hey man, what you up to? And I'd just be going for a walk. And that was cool. I respected that. I respected everybody that was at the gate to make sure no visitors were coming in to try to keep us from getting sick. I respected that. I appreciated that. And I think that's what we need. And whether or not the government acts on it or not, our citizens are. And as a grandpa, that shouldn't be my role in this community, to have to go physically fight somebody to protect our kids. Because all of that violence is happening when the kids are getting off the school bus and getting onto the school bus. And it's just so unacceptable now. And I know I don't want to come across as being negative, but I get so angry. And I'd rather move into my old age not being bitter. I want to enjoy the kids calling me grandpa and not them seeing me having to fight somebody to keep them from leaving their beer on the road. I know there's a lot that YFN could do, but I think this is a good start. I think keeping our people visible to outreach to somebody that's in pain, to say, we're not going to beat you up. We want to help you. And at least have 3 or 4 good ideas, 3 or 4 good people that they can get them in touch with to get that help they need. Because we do have people that physically had to stop drinking or they're dead. That's already happened. And during the pandemic, we lost at least 3 or 4 people to alcohol and drugs. Not a single one to the pandemic. But we put up the resources to make sure we didn't get sick. A lot of our people are really sick. And it's from alcoholism and overdosing on hard drugs. So I really think Larry Baird was one of them that had a presence in this community, that drove around with his little siren on top of his truck. Just having a presence, just somebody that can stop and say, hey man, what are you doing tonight? You know, we just have to let our people that are sick know that there's a line, that we don't want to take it anymore. This is our home. And we've seen that a couple times now. There's been 2 demonstrations here in the community where people paraded with signs saying, no, that's enough. We don't want this here. So there's nothing unreasonable about that. I really think we can eradicate this in 4 years. If we can do it to COVID, we can do that with alcoholism and hard drugs too. So that's my request to our government, to our leaders to go ahead and hire for 2 gals, 2 guys that can walk openly up to somebody. Say, hey, what you doing? Yeah, no trouble, man. Just, if you need help, we can do that. I think that could be effective. It would be a start. That's all I wanted to say. Chooch.
Clayco, thank you, Tyson, for your words. I'm going to ask that the question regarding the 50 fish come forward, please. There was a question about 50 fish.
Well, I don't know the background other than somebody went to one of the guys that fishes with us and demanded 50 fish. Well, we don't do that here. We wait until the vehicle's out here and we get in line.
Mhm.
Right? For somebody to just go to the boat and say, I want 50 fish for a wedding. No. You get in line like the rest of us, right? I know if I did it, I would be in handcuffs. And if I wasn't, people would say, he should be, right? We got to have one law for everybody. We can't start parceling it because I read a comment somewhere, well, he was a president or something. So that don't make him honest. I know the guy. It's my brother. You want to know stories about him? I could tell you all kinds, but the lawyer would have to leave the room.
Thank
So
you.
I want to know what's going to happen.
Okay. Do we know anything about this? Do we know? Do you know anything?
I've heard, yeah.
I want to end. I'm spent. I want to close this meeting. So we can follow up one-on-one. Okay, I've been informed that this is a matter for the executive to discuss on their agenda tomorrow with their legal counsel. So I don't have an answer to this evening, Larry, but there's a commitment to follow up with you one-on-one with your question. So there's no information available right now, but after the conversation, I think information is being presented and then they will have information that they can respond to the question. But unfortunately, that's not today.
Are you telling me I got to be patient? Just a little.
One of the things I say to my autistic son is, hey, Patience, you know that guy? And he says, yeah, I know that guy. And he waits. I'm sorry to ask that, but yes, I'm asking if you can wait.
It's like, I know if it was me, I'd be in handcuffs, right? And the person that did it was someone that used to be the president here. And that's why the person that gave him the fish said, well, he was the past president, so must be honest. Well, he's also a car salesman, and I'll just leave it at that. What do you think about car salesmen?
Thank you, Larry.
All right, I'll wait.
So the last item on our agenda this evening is the eekoo referendum. Which one am I looking at? For referendum? But we're not doing that, right? Oh, okay. Oh, thanks.
Hi, my name is Sheldon Tucci, and I'm here on behalf of my little campaign for my own dispensary regulations regarding the liquor and cannabis Licensing Act and regulations here on YFN land. And you know, most of you guys know I've been crying wolf about this for about 3 years. And before I get into the real meat and potatoes of it, just I want to do a little thought experiment here. I would like the members of the legislature to give me a soft iteration or a soft metaphor, 20 to 30 seconds maybe, on what your metaphor for the treaty is for us as a people.
I appreciate your request, but I'm going to deny the request. I'm sorry, we don't have time to do that this evening. So if you could present your issue on the referendum that you identified on the agenda, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Long story short, I've been chasing my own little quote unquote sovereign regulations that I believe that our nation as a treaty and self-governed had the limits to do so. And if you watch APTN, I don't know if anybody here does, but you'll see some articles and some segments regarding, it's mostly over in Ontario. They're all regarding the overstretching of the jurisdiction that the weed and liquor licensing has on native lands, particularly treaty lands, which is why I was trying to ask in particular what you guys thought treaty meant. Because treaty to me, let me get, sorry, getting a little emotional here. Treaty to me is something like the colonial government having a little gladiator's pit. And we are the starved little slave that they threw into the ring with their little Hercules with the executioner's axe. And the treaty represents the small little rusted dagger that they give us to defend ourselves with in this really hostile world. And another addition I want to make real quick is that I was reading our treaty briefly, what I could absorb from it, because I'm really ADHD and I only suck in some things that I think are important. But what I did notice is that the Canadian government put their little fingers in it. They said, yeah, you guys are sovereign in your own little way that we'll acknowledge in our own little way. But if you guys think that you guys want to do something that you guys think you want to do on an independent little movement, but we have a disagreement with it or it rubs us the wrong way, that, oh, we can come in there and say no. That's in there. You know the typical cliche movie that's in the horror genre where they say, it's in the house? I'm pretty sure you guys heard that at one point or another. They're in our house. And that should have scared the ones that made the treaty in the first place. And it's something that I very intently very adamant on looking forward to in the future, that I hope this government or the next term of government, whether I have any input in it or not, but that's something to look at, something that's in our treaty. And that aside, I'm not asking for anything because I've asked for 3 years and I've never gotten anything, because it's hard enough to try and communicate, to get communications through email, whatever. And I know I'm coming down heavy on you guys, and you guys have been chewed out enough tonight, and you guys are probably tired. But that's the end of my little referendum pitch, because I only have about 6 or 7 more signatures to go to actually hold a referendum. And that's when I can really try and appeal to you guys to let me go toe to toe with Canada, whoever they want to send at me. It could be Gordon Fraser, it could be Josie Osborne, it could be Trudeau, it could be Stephen Harper. I don't care. They can come over here and I will undress them and I will invite them to leave us alone. But anyway, that's enough about the referendum. The next thing I wanted to add was on the portfolio, something about the Trans Mountain Pipeline. And I don't know where this came from, but I just really want to ask, are we really going into bed with the big black snake? That's what they called it. The big black snake that's going to come through our lands and sully our waters and do whatever it does. And anyway, I just wanted to bring that out there and give it for some food for thought for the people watching at home. And keep an eye out for me, like Yuki Green on Facebook.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will take the one question that was in there, which is there an agreement on Trans Mountain? Jenny.
Thanks, Sheldon. So the TMX discussion has been a part of my portfolio since I've started with the legislature. This is something that's happening at a collective level with the Manulth Treaty Society. So really, there has been no agreement from any nations, any of the 129 nations that Canada is talking to. It's still very much an information sharing stage, at which point there will be a decision made. It'll go through the Manulth Treaty Society for deciding. Each nation will decide whether or not they want to participate in it or not. Quite frankly, I don't see that happening anytime soon, just given the level of discussion that's happening. I think all of the nations are a little bit at an impasse with Canada on how to move the discussions forward and what each nation is looking to get out of it. I just don't think that Canada is going to get the consensus that they're trying to achieve by grouping everybody together. So I don't envision any kind of decision being made soon, just given the level of discussions, but at which case it would go through the Treaty Society to come back to each nation for official decisions. So just to give you an update on where those discussions are. Something that I try and keep in mind, I'm very much from the mindset of sustainability and environmentalism. Like I think that we have to protect what we have, and does participating in a pipeline compromise that? Absolutely. But if Canada bought this project at a $4 billion loss and them trying to turn around and offload it at a loss, does that give me a lot of hope that we really have a decision either way? Like you said, Canada can do what Canada wants. That's the unfortunate reality of a lot of decision-making that Canada does. And so we have to decide, do we want to oppose it or not? I'm not sure. I'm not the person. I'm just someone that's sitting at the table listening to the discussion. So that's really all I can offer at this time.
Thank you, Jenny.
I hear you.
Thank you. I've just been reminded that the last item on our agenda, again, Tyson, back to you, is on a ball field request. No. Sorry, question's been asked and answered. You can ask another question after Tyson's done his ball field if you like.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just wanted to come back to him. Larry touched on it. I think I was a teenager when the clinic went up on the field, And that field down there was always, we were always playing ball down there. The whole community too. I remember playing against the women when I was 12 years old, and the ladies beating our pants down there. And it was always just for fun. So when the clinic went up there, it was with the promise that we're gonna build you another one. But I can remember being an angry teenager, and we'd always be aiming for it. And then my first term on council, we had that bad housing crisis. So we put the fourplex down there with the same promise, we're gonna build you another one. But we never did. I always feel guilty about that. So we're still there. We have our people going across the bay to go play at drop-in over there. I still think it would be great to see a ball field right behind the gym here. It could create work for our people if we did it ourselves and trained our people how to use heavy equipment, maybe to build our own sidewalks and everything. So I really wanted to put that out there. I'm not saying the government owes it to our people, but I know it would be another big plus for the community here to have our own ball field. It's still really popular. And yeah, I miss it. Our kids don't even know what a ball glove is. So I think there's a lot of potential there to build some good feelings up around here, around a ball field. So I just wanted to put that out there to our government. I know you're going to be discussing some new developments. I think that would be a great one. Chu.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind the Assembly, we've had a little bit of a less structured meeting this evening because we recognize that this is the first time we've gathered in person in so long. So just don't expect it every time we gather, just this time. I'm just going to turn to our technicians to see if we have any questions from our folks at home. Do we have anything from anybody? No? Okay. We don't have anything from anyone at home. Last one, yes. We're just about to wrap her up.
Okay. So I really wanted to do what Tyson did earlier and acknowledge the cooks and the servers. I was saying that was a 5-star meal. That was so good. Thank you, James and Bree. I know you were helping. Tlicko. I also want to announce that last March, we had our youngest grandson born. His name is Jake Patrick, and he is worth celebrating and acknowledging. So baby Jake, and my daughter Jada, she's 17 and she graduated this year from Eekoo Secondary School with valedictorian. Her and Timmy Masso actually were voted to be valedictorian together. So way to go, Jada. And then, thank you. I also want to acknowledge the staff in the daycare. You know, through the whole pandemic, they've been graciously taking care of our 4-year-old, and you know, it's just so much appreciated. Tlicko to Cix၀Daycare. Yeah. And I also want to say thank you to the team who rolled out the vaccinations. You know, it was such a good feeling to come in here and see our community members and, you know, to be so close to home for that. And Tlicko for the fish. That it's always one of the most exciting days in the community. I always feel that. So our family was really excited. I also want to acknowledge Auntie Brenda Clayton. Throughout the pandemic, she's been baking cupcakes and delivering them to the kids, you know, so there's been many times where she brought our children cupcakes. And I also wanted to acknowledge Geneva. You know, Geneva, you're such a great language instructor. I'm so grateful that you're there, you know, making a difference in that way. And then the resilience in all of us, you know. I never ever thought that I would say that I lived through a pandemic, you know, but we did. And the resilience in all of the residential school survivors, the resilience in the second generation, third generation, you know, we're still recovering from that. And so I wanted to leave with some appreciation. So, oh, and Michelle Tucci, I was really grateful that she, you know, took the time to open the gym and be here with us while we got to play. So Chooch.
Excellent. Thank you for your words of encouragement and acknowledgement. And our last speaker of the evening, Larry.
Thank you. Wasn't that bad, was it? So, whatever you expected didn't happen. But it gave us an opportunity to finally stand up and you know, a year and a half is a long time to sit and watch a government, right? And we got some answers to questions, and we'll get more, right, as we move along. And I'm quite enjoying what I'm doing now. I guess I'm, what am I called, Gloria? Equalizing or recruitment gate? Something like that. I don't even know what the title is. But I work with the young ones, right? And kind of share my history with them, because I didn't graduate or any of those kind of things. I would just had to go out and work and had my family give me direction. You know, I think my grandpa went to court with me one time when I was fairly young, right? And all he said to me was, "I hope you learned something, grandson," as we walked home along the beach. It was a stupid thing that I did with two of my other cousins. But anyway, it's been nice. Food was good, great, right? And I'm looking forward to better days ahead if we start doing what we're supposed to do. You know, because when you become a leader, it comes from here and not only here. And you have to find that fine line between leading and making sure that you've had discussion and that you have the people behind you. Otherwise, you can have the people revolt. And I know quite a bit about being elected, because I was 10 years a second vice president in Port Alberni of the IWA. So I got a lot of training out at the big lake, the Harrison Lake there, 6 weeks every year for 10 years. And so I'm looking forward to the days ahead now that we can sit and discuss. I'm looking forward to our meetings in the fall when we start having the Tuesday and Thursday. We get our drummers out and they come out and we have a soup and whatever. And I think Brent's been here occasionally when that's happened, right? So, no, it's a different atmosphere now, but I'm still not used to just taking off and running like I did a year and a half ago. You kind of say, oh, should I go there or shouldn't I? No, I don't need to go there. So changed, I think we've changed some of our habits, but anyway, and it's been nice. You know, yeah, I was on the gate there, community security or whatever you want to call it. And it was good. I think we're one of the nations that really didn't have any problems. And people just, they would turn and drive right, oops. And away they'd go, take off and go. There's one or two argued with me, but then they still turned around and left. But it's been good. It's been a good, but now I think we got to start pulling ourselves back together, and we've still got a lot to do in terms of the people we lost, because that's still here. You know, we've got to say goodbye to them properly, like we do. Because there's been quite a few people that we've not said what we have to say. So that's coming up. My nephew, he's ready for it, Lindsay, right? He knows we got to do it. It's just something that we have to do because we are Cixŵatin, and that's what we do. We honor those that have left their knowledge and gone on somewhere else. I don't mean heaven. I mean with our Creator. Because we're still Cixŵatin. Now I may have went to the residential school. That didn't change me. I'm still who I am, Cixŵatin. Right? And it's been a tough road for some. And I think out of this, I think we have to have, we have to create our own group of residential school survivors. We have to sit down together so we can share, even if it's just share, you know, stories or whatever. Let people know that, hey, we care. We care. Yeah, if people want to come up and say they care too, that's all right. Right? So I wish you well. I hope we do what we're going to do and start some discussions and get some things done that I've heard from some of our people, such as Gord and the young fellow behind me here. But we have to work together. That's the only way we're going to be successful, right? And that's how we survived to this day, who we are, Cixŵatin, right? And the people that condemn us, they forget that their people that came here were immigrants. The only problem we had is we had a weak policy to prevent them from settling here. And you've heard that from Bill Wilson over the years, right? And that's one of the things that Bill Wilson always said. We had a weak immigration policy. Should have been a little bit stronger, and we'd still be here, right? Because look what we're getting back. You know, we're getting back forestry that's just about done, fishing that's just about done, and all those things. And we're trying to build entrepreneurs with scraps, and they're fighting hard. They're fighting, and they will fight harder. They know they got our support, government support, and get money from wherever we can that other nations seem to be getting. So thank you very much. It was great. Supper was great. Good to see you guys after a year, guys and gals, after a year and a half. And I hope we don't have to go through that again, but it says one thing, that together, if we listen to our leaders, and they were listening to the people out there giving the advice, and we came through this pretty good. Yeah, I still got my little tag here now. I pack it on the outside. Very proud of it. Had my 2 shots. And people are saying, you had your 2 shots? I said, yeah. Our community did. So I show it to everybody. I said, have you had your 2 shots? No. Well, get away from me. I don't want to take your disease and give it to somebody else. Just kidding. But they're good-natured about it anyway. So thank you very much. And I hope you do become the chair for the economic development. Whatever we're going to do, whatever we're going to write down and put on paper that says this is what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. Something that makes sense. Doesn't have to be fancy, it's just got to be simple. And it's going to help us move ahead and become who we want to be, right? So thank you very much to all of you. on behalf of myself and others, to thank you. My hat.
Kreko, HKSM. Thank you very much for the words. So just to recap, we don't have any resolutions this evening, but we do have some specific direction. One is to investigate patient travel and to bring back to the next assembly some options for the community, making sure that we're advocating on behalf of the citizens, some questions around making sure that if there's any development in our sacred areas, in particular Mount Ozard, that there's a process in place for that and that the community is engaged. A desire to have engagement from the economic development on entrepreneurship and the opportunity to, as the Ukilathit Nation, to assist our citizens in the development of small business and to operate in tourism in a culturally sensitive and respectful way that benefits the nation. And there's a desire to ensure that there's a trauma-informed approach and addictions counseling, as well as services for Ukilathit citizens to have here in the community. That was heard from the health director, and desire to ensure that cultural practice is incorporated in any of those techniques or methods that are used, to remember that children's resilience is important and that we have to ensure that our programs include the opportunity for children to thrive, a desire to have recreational space such as a ball field, mountain bike trails, walking trails, and other trails for the community to participate in recreational activities, and to remind ourselves that everything is connected and that when we sparse things out into programs and service delivery models that disaggregate everything, we just have to remember to bring it back together. And that's what makes us who we are. And a desire to ensure that we're safe in our community and that the nation government consider ways to support citizens who want to live and thrive and raise their families in a safe community, and to consider options to be able to do that. And as well, a cautionary note on entering into an agreement for a pipeline that could decimate, and we all understand and appreciate that. So just a real quick highlight of what we've discussed this evening. Again, I just wanted to say in my language, hitac nasiya, hitac. I didn't introduce myself, but for folks who may not have been here before, when I've chaired our assembly, Tanatsnat Chalawatzaat, hitac, and the pack Tani likes. And so my name is Chalawatzaat. My English name is Shanna Thomas. I come from the community of Laixon. My grandfather was a hereditary chief of my community. Laixon's very unique. We have a hereditary chief and an elected council. So we don't have a chief councillor under the Indian Act. We maintain our hereditary chieftainship structure, and that's where I'm from. Very humbled and honored to work with you and your nation on the work that you have in front of you implementing your treaty, and am grateful for the opportunity to be asked by the legislature to come forward to support you in that effort. To our family and friends at home, thank you so much for zooming in, for those who couldn't be here. But just to let you know that we tentatively have set the date of October 25th for the next assembly. So please make note of that. If everything stays as it is, we will be meeting in person. And on that note, unless there's any final comment, President?
Just a couple of words, yeah. I know that, I mean, we all have, I mean, our different opinions, no matter which way, I mean, you look at it, you know, everybody will never, and that's one of the things that I discuss with my kids is, I mean, everybody has their own opinion, right? And it's healthy to have, I mean, an opinion and you know, and then voice your opinion. I don't frown at it. I don't take it as any personal different issues. I mean, I can either take an opinion or whatever. I mean, I don't carry it. And, you know, but I mean, in respect of, I mean, everybody's opinion, everybody has it. So, I mean, and I don't try to impose my opinion on, I mean, on people or whatever, but and one other thing, you know, I mean, the 5-star meal there, I mean, I had my hands in the fish there. I did all the, I did the cooking of the fish and stuff like that. So thank you all.
Thanks. Thank you. We're now adjourned. Have a good evening. Stay safe.
I don't need a gold star.